we are back with Dr. Larry Ponemon from the Ponemon Institute, and we're talking about the New York City SMB State of Cybersecurity Survey and study that Dr. Ponemon and his staff are going to embark on. So, Larry, let's get into another part of the the deep and the dark here. All right.
Okay.
If we're talking success with this study, what are we talking about? Are we talking about 50 companies, 5,000 companies, 50,000? Does it make a difference?
Oh, yes. Sample size does make a difference.
Hmm.
The key variable is that we want to get enough respondents and responses that so that we can start to generalize our findings to the population of small to medium-sized businesses in New York. So that's probably going to require a good sample size. Now, what do I mean by good? A good could be, less than 100 or less than 200 in order to be good. But to make it really, really good, you want to get a large enough sample size. Now, I can't give you what exactly that number is going to look like because there's probably someone listening to this conversation who is a PhD in mathematical statistics, and they would in fact kill me, and they would be entitled to kill me if I gave you the wrong process for coming up with sample size. But sample size depends on a whole bunch of variables. One of it is just the quality of the survey itself and how much variance are in the questions. But my gut tells me that we probably want to get more than 200 to 300 organizations in order to have a meaningful sample size. And how do I get to that number is completely unscientific. We find that media, organizations like Bloomberg and CNN and major media, they like large sample sizes. So if you're not talking about hundreds, they don't want to pay attention to the results. And if we're going to get good media coverage, which is an important part of this.
Oh, yeah, it's part of the awareness.
Yeah, we want to make sure that people see this as really good quality research. So that means sample size in the hundreds. If it's a large group, that's great. But if we can get a large enough group to be able to form inferences and kind of look at patterns of data, and even if it's a couple of, more than 100, less than 200, that's fine. The key variable is enough information for us to be able to, generalize our findings. And so I think we're going to get there. I think based on our experience, this is a hard study to field. SMBs are busy, and people are very busy, and to spend an hour doing this is a large commitment. But I have a good feeling that this is a really cool topic, and we should be able to get a good sample size.
Well, I think you're absolutely right about that. How many questions are we talking about during
About
the survey?
25,000 questions.
Only 25. So is that in book one or book two?
No, it's not. No, it's not. I should do that. Probably people are clicking. They're closing their computer now. No, we're probably looking at about 30 items, and I'm saying about. It could be 25. Probably not much above 30 if we're going to keep this to a reasonable amount of time. There's something called survey fatigue, and basically what happens is people start out, eager, and they read question 1, they give you a great answer, and then get to question 311, and they start getting really angry, and everything they respond to is, "We hate you."
Yeah, I hear you.
Why did you do this to us? So we want to keep it to a small enough size where people are going to take it seriously. We're not going to take up more than an hour of your time, and ideally, a lot less than that.
So we've got somebody online right now, and they posed a decent question, and he says Scott is saying, without getting the cart before the horse, can you comment on some of the kinds of useful data we might expect to see from this New York City survey?
Sure, no, and I appreciate that question, Scott. I think the one example of useful data would be to try to understand what kind of enabling security technologies are being deployed or not being deployed by organizations. I think, for example, we'll probably see like antivirus and anti-malware being deployed, but security intelligence tools like SIM may not be deployed. Even though they're relatively inexpensive in an SMB environment, we probably will see those kinds of gaps. And understanding those gaps will help us to make recommendations about how they can improve their security posture at a relatively low cost. So enabling technologies, or it could be what kind of governance and control processes are being deployed or what's not being deployed. And then maybe we'll look at their track record for data breach and security exploits to try to understand, what are some of the things that organizations are dealing with. This is where we may see some surprises. we may see, for example, lots of data breach events that exist but that are not necessarily recorded or reported as required by law in certain states. So what I'd like to do is keep an open mind, but we might find gaps with technology, with governance processes, control procedures, policies, and then make recommendations about where we think organizations can improve their security posture, where they can get the greatest bang for the buck. Because you might have limited resources, and in an ideal world, yeah, we have millions of dollars to spend. We can hire great consultants and have them write policies for us. But the average SMB in New York, I would imagine, doesn't have that kind of capital, doesn't have the time to do that, and so they're going to basically look for other solutions, and we'll be able to make those recommendations.
All right, that's a very good question, Scott. Thanks,
Thanks, Scott.
and Larry, thanks for answering that. If you've got a question for Dr. Ponemon, please do let us know. We're going to break to a short commercial here, and we'll be right back with more from Dr. Larry Ponemon right after this message from our friends at Cisco.